Hi, this is a short video to get you started with the public beta of Fractal Architect for iOS. This is the page you will be arriving to when you first start the app. It's the new random page. You see here a grid of fractals that has been generated. You click the make to make a new bunch. And you have here a list of available variations. There are lots of them. You get the pre-group with the pre-variations, and any variation can be used as a pre-variation, and the normal group and the post-group, same there, any variation can be used. You have the link transforms and you have the final transforms. Here you have the settings that decide what will happen when you press the make button here. You can set the fractal symmetry. You can decide if you want to make a 2D fractal or 3D fractal and randomize the 3D camera. You set the aspect ratio of the generated fractals. You decide how many random transforms will be in the fractals. You set a minimum and a maximum here. And if you want a final transform, you have to enable that. And here you have the how many random variations will be in each transform. You set a minimum and a maximum there too. And you have the number of added pre-groups and post-groups set on 25%, which means that on 25% of these, the groups, pre-groups and post-groups will be populated with the variations that you set. Since this is a beta software, there will be some bugs, and it's one of your jobs as a testers to find those bugs. But I will point you to some of the bugs that we know. Say that I want to get rid of the pre-linear there, and I want to enter a post-blur or pre-blur instead. Now we got a pre-blur there. But if you look at the normal group now, the blur has been added there too. That is not supposed to happen. That is a bug. It's the same if you add a post or a final. And the simple workaround for that is just get rid of the extra variations that you don't want. You can set the values of the parameters of the fractals here on values. Let's add a post Julian. Get rid of the linear, and you can search here. I just type J, and I have the Julian there. And you have a post Julian, and get rid of it here. If I go to values, here are the parameters for the Julia. Say I want more power than 2, so I increase that to 7, but I want at least 3. So now it will vary the Julia power between 3 and 7. I can increase the distance too. Let's see. Yes? Say now that you find a fractal here that you want to take a close look at. You just tap it, and you tap it again. And you get a preview. You can maximize the preview to cover the entire screen. I'm making this on an iPad, but it's the same on the iPhone. And if I want to save some of these fractals, I can edit them by hit edit there, and I select them, and I have this star with a plus in. That will add it to the stash, where I can collect all interesting fractals. I have some more already there. And from the stash, I can then tap it and I can edit it. I can zoom by pinching, I can rotate it, by rotating my fingers, the usual iOS gestures. And I can reach other parts of the app where I can continue working on this fractal. There's another way to save a fractal. That's if you select it and you hit save. Then it will save it as a standalone fractal. And if you go back here and you make another spin, say I want like that one, I can hit edit and select it, and I copy it and go to files and I paste it in. Now I have 2 fractal frames in that saved fractal, so I can collect a lot of fractals that way too. Okay, let's take a look at how we can edit this now. We go to favorites or the stash, and let's take this one that we've been working on. From here you can reach the Xform editor. It's this triangle here, and here you have a lot of information about this fractal. These buttons under the preview are very important. It's a filter that lets you decide how much information you want to see. If you click layer, you want to see the layer. You can make additional layers, but and a much easier way to create layers will come in later updates. If you click this eye in a circle here, you can set stuff that relates to the whole layer, which in this case is the whole fractal. You can change the color shading, which is brightness, gamma, and vibrancy, and stuff like that. And you can change the viewpoint and camera. Viewport, not viewpoint, sorry. And that's the scale and the zoom. It's not a very good idea to use the zoom. If you want to zoom in, it's better to increase the size of the final transform. You can set the rotation here also. And render parameters. You don't usually have to mess with those. What more can we do here? Well, that's about it. The next level is the transform. Now you see the transforms that are in this fractal. This is the solo button. You can see which transform are generating which part in the fractal. And from here, let's take, which one should we take? Let's take that one. If we edit that, you have the graphical editor here, and you have, if you like to enter numerical values and rotate it a certain amount of degrees, something, and you can do that here too for pre-matrix and the post-matrix. And you set the weight of the fractal like this. But the most interesting thing here is the graphical editor. And here you can, to navigate, with one finger you can move around. You don't move the triangle here, but you move the view, and you 2 fingers down you will zoom, 2 fingers up you will zoom out, and to move this you tap it once, then you can move it like this. And to change the size, just grab the border of the triangle and move it. These blue and red lines, they are for rotating the triangle. You grab the lines and you rotate the triangle like this. I hit undo there to undo that rotation. So that's the transform tab. The group tab shows the layer and the transforms and what groups are in the transform, but you still don't see the variations. You hit the variations here to see that. And now you can see here that transform 1 has a pre-blur, and it has a Julia in the normal, and transform 2, and so on. And the final transform is a linear. If I want to change the linear, I don't want a final linear, I want something more fun. I select it like this, I tap it. And here I can hit the plus button, then I can add another variation. So I can have a linear and say Julia. Or if I want to remove one of the variations I have, I select it and I hit the minus button there. If I want to change the linear to something else, I of course tap change. And here we can find stuff by searching. Let's add a hypertile 2. And if I want to move the triangle for the final transform, I select it here and hit the I to get to the graphical editor, and it works just like the other editors. You can move stuff around like this. That's rather nice. Let's play with the size. Oh, something like that. And the final tab here is all. Then you see everything. You see the layer, you see the transform, you see the variations, and like the Julian here, you see the parameters. So I can change the distance, for instance. Now you see I can make it smaller, but it maxes out at 2 here. Not 2, 5.4772. But I can set a new maximum. I enter 20 instead of 2. And then I can continue to change it like that. Oh, I really like that actually. Let's keep that. So this, let's look at the power. And we change that maximum to 22. It's an easy way to enter bigger numbers. I can of course write the numbers here. I can write 200 if I want to, like that. But if I want to use the slider works between the minimum value and the maximum value, like that. So let's look at the variance editor. If we take this one into the variance editor, the variance editor is the icon above the favorites. Oops, didn't mean to press that. There it is again. It's these 4 squares. This is a variance editor, and it comes set to color gradient, which means that it takes this fractal that we had and it changes the color gradients. It's a fast way to find interesting color settings for a fractal. And the only way right now, since the gradients editor is not in place yet. You have a set of buttons here that decide what you change. I can add symmetry to this, and it will change color and symmetry. I can add the variance weights. The mastering is brightness and gamma and vibrancy. The camera only makes a difference if you have a 3D fractal. You can change the color of the background, and right now it's the only way to change the color of the background. You can't set it manually yet. It will come too. Well, this is kind of self-explanatory. If you change the variation parameters, you might find this. You see just 2 dots, and that's because you have a final variation that doesn't allow very much changing, of its parameters. In this case, we have 2 hypertile 2s. But we have a target here. Targets, this decide which of the X forms are affected. If we unselect final X form 1 and 2, you don't get that problem with the fractal not rendering, because only the ordinary X forms are changed. Or I can decide that I only want to change X form 4, for instance. It doesn't have any parameters, I think, but let's change the variation weights and the matrix, and you will see you will get more of a change. This cogwheel here is the settings for the variance editor, and if I go to matrix settings here, I have you see it changes the rotation, the scale, the X and Y placements of the triangle. For 3D fractals, it changes some more parameters. I can decide if I want to change the pre-matrix or the post-matrix, and have this here, randomize these settings, very useful, into random numbers. And let's change all the transforms. You see, you get a rather big difference here. And this is a very fast way to find interesting variations on the fractal that you are working on. And since you can use many of these at the same time, you can find more interesting variations than if you would do it by hand. So I often set up an interesting fractal, and when I have it ready as I want it, then I save it, and then I go into the variance editor to find variation of these. And very often I find variations that I would not have thought of myself, that are really good and quite different from what I started with. Oh, I like that one. Yes, let's put that in the favorites and have a look at it. So the variance editor is a very powerful part of the app. So explore it and see what you can do with it. Very nice, like that. Now, if we continue with this one in the variance editor, like this, and we want more space, we can maximize this. And if we want to make change a setting now, we don't have to go back, because we have the menu here where you can set these different parameters that you want to randomize. So kind of quick menu. Oh, there is another one that is very nice. Hit edit, and I want that one, and I want that one, I want that one, and I put them in the stash like that. So I think it's just one more thing now that we have to discuss. No, there are two actually. If I open that one, if when you first start the app and you start to zoom in and change, this preview here can become very blurry, with full of blurry light blobs. And the fix for that is that you not go there, but you go to these cogwheels here, and you set a higher resolution from small to medium. It comes to start, it comes quality is 100 and they are small. Let's change that so you can see the effect. And on my iPad, that is not enough. If I edit this now, you get this effect, and it gets hard to work. Now we have the fractal preview options, so I set this back to 200, and I set the size to medium, like that. And if I zoom now, you see I get a clear image again, like that. So if that happens, that is how you fix it. Now you want to render this, and the render is here, this printer icon. Here you can set preset aspect ratios and sizes, or you can enter your own. And here is an aspect ratio lock. And when you render this, you have the advanced overrides here too, where you set the oversampling and the filter shape. I usually use Kaiser. When you render this, the rendered file will wind up here in iCloud on my iPad, Fractal Architect, images. Your rendered fractals will end up here. But when you have rendered them, you can also save them with a standard share icon and save them to the camera roll. But they will not be saved as a PNG here that I have set, but they will always be saved as a JPEG. So I think that's about it. If you have trouble, please contact me. You can do that through the Fractal Architect Facebook page, where you can find us and send a message, or in the comments on YouTube, where I will upload this video, and we will try to help you. Okay, have fun with your public beta.